All right. Hi, everyone. I feel like I always get awkward in the intro. This is the first Veggie Rx working group meeting that we are having since the mini convening at the beginning of March. And we've got a number of updates and a number of new faces on this call today. So if folks can just drop in your name, your pronouns, your organizational affiliation, and something you're really looking forward to in the next month. And just drop that in the chat, and so everyone can kind of get to know each other a little bit. And then I'm just going to run through a quick kind of informal agenda that we have because and then I think we're just going to leave a lot of space for conversation and just like some updates from around the room. So for the record, my name is Shin. If we have not met yet, I use she, her pronouns, and I am the network coordinator at the Oregon Community Food System Network. And we've got, in the last couple of months, we, had a number of like funding and project updates, which are really exciting. Our folks on this call all subscribe to the OCFSN newsletter. Cool, because that just came out last week. And it's been a couple months since we've had one, but also dropping that link. It's not clickable, but if you haven't seen it, that's up there, and there's a lot more detail about some of the cool things that we've been working on. And for folks who haven't been able to join us for the few info sessions that we hosted regarding the GusNIP grant, I think just a quick overview on that is we are not going to apply for 2023. I think the application was due this week, but we do still today. Well, we did that by accident. However, we did receive or were awarded the capacity building grant. And that accounted for a bucket of money to bring a lot of us together. And so we had opened up a Google a form to try to figure out when do we want to gather. And so that's one of the main things that we'll talk about. We have some results, but we really only heard from 10 people so far. So if anyone here is definitely interested in coming and didn't get a chance to respond yet, Jen is going to drop that link back in the chat to let folks add their info in real quick. And then also I'm going to drop back in, now that we have more folks, the meeting notes document. So anyone who's joining this call for the first time or any OCFSN call for the first time, we typically have running meeting notes. So on just one document, we'll take attendance, we'll kind of talk through the agenda and capture any notes. And then there's also a Zoom recording that ends up getting published to YouTube, as well as a transcript that we use Otter AI for. And yeah, thanks everyone for dropping your info. If you just joined and you haven't had a moment to yet, drop your name, your pronouns, your organization and role, and something you're looking forward to in the next month. And so let me share my screen. All right. So we're going to talk through some next steps. So for folks, there are a couple links for previous information sessions if you need to, if you want to review those. But I think now is probably a good time for us to just kind of open the floor and spend maybe the next 15 minutes or so and just go around the room and let folks share something, that they want to celebrate, or just, any exciting new projects that are underway. And just unmute. And I feel like it's a pretty small group. I think it's going to be manageable if any folks want to kick us off. I can also model it first, if that's helpful. So one of the really exciting things I think that's happened in the last quarter, or just like in this year, is I feel like we have a lot of new members of our leadership team, and folks have been really engaged, and we've been able to create a few different subgroups to work on specific things. One of them being, myself and Andrew were the first staff members for OCFSN. And so April was our 1-year anniversary. And I think, for any new nonprofit or any new organization or business in a way, it's like, what are all the internal operations, and how do we make sure that we're taking care of our people, and how do we make it more accessible for future team members to join? And so a lot of work has been done in those regards. And then I think getting to meet so many of you in person, or just getting to chat for the first time, I think that's always really rejuvenating and exciting to be like, wow, there's so many things that we're each working on that intertwine, and like sometimes also, like, even if they don't quite overlap, it's amazing to know that that's being worked on. So I'll pass it to whoever would like to go next. I saw Sarah, you unmuted for a minute.
Yeah, hi everyone, Sarah Sullivan. I'm out here in the Columbia River Gorge with Gorge Grown Food Network. And we have had a Veggie Rx program for, goodness, since 2017. That's been up and down, waning and waxing with funding and pandemics and everything. I'm excited to share that a small pilot that we did last year with funding, flex benefit or flex service funding from our CCO, coordinated care organization called Pacific Source, for just 10 families through Mid-Columbia Medical Center, has been expanded this year to include 10 more families. So we're excited about that. It's been really straightforward so far. I'd be happy to share more if anyone's interested, but it's the dosage is $1 a day per family member. So I think it's going to be about $14,000 this year. Contracting with the local Gorge Farmers Cooperative to aggregate and distribute all the produce now in box form, which is so much better than the vouchers for us. And pros and cons to that for our recipients. But it's all good. And then we have a few other Veggie Rx program, one through a elementary school with support from Share Our Strength or No Kids Hungry in Odell. And then Providence Memorial continuing to fund their oncology department, and wrapping up a small grant with Knight Cancer Institute for you OHSU folks. That was also for cancer patients or survivors through MCMC. So I rarely have time to join these calls anymore, but I'm happy to be here and join, especially because I'm interested in a in-person gathering. And just to flag for organizers of that, my colleague and friend here, Lexi Stickle, who's with Pacific Source. She's been a Veggie Rx champ, and she'd be happy to help with kind of organizing that in a small part if she can, and then also come present or represent a champion CCO.
Amazing. Thanks for that update, Sarah. Also, for folks who don't know, Sarah has been on the OCFSN leadership team for, I don't even know how many years now. So
6+. Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone else want to share?
I can go. Hi, I'm Elle. My pronouns are they, them. I am in Portland with Freedom Feed'em. I am new to the food systems and understanding agriculture and everything. Um, I am their food liberation coordinator. It is a new role. I came up with the name. It's very cool. And my role is to help reduce food waste and make sure that we're getting those fresh foods to families. So I go to farmers markets and just support farmers by purchasing anything left over at the end of the market day to bring that to families. And we created a whole program around it called Winji, which means abundance in Swahili. So I'm really interested in finding out how that can translate to supporting families and helping families get the nutrients that they need in home so that they can not, or so that they don't have to really worry about going to the doctor as much for certain ailments. There's certain things that they can actually do with diet to just change up certain types of conditions that they have. We work with a very large population, and it would be amazing to know how we can support them and how this program can help them too.
Thanks for sharing, all. And folks, just jump in.
I'll go next because I'm inspired by what Elle said about the farmers market program, which sounds totally awesome. So I'm Jared, and I work with OSU Extension, the food preservation program, and I'm super excited that we've hired some people in a few different counties in the Willamette Valley to do more food security support with our food preservation resources. And they're working, this is the connection to what Elle was saying, I think, with folks that are doing a lot of gleaning work and to help them kind of scale up some of their skills around taking gleaned foods and deciding what's good, what needs to be pitched, and how to safely preserve it in different ways, and then share that with folks within their group. So I'm hoping that those folks that we've hired can also do some support for Veggie Rx work also, and we're doing just at least one partnership in place now in Salem to do that. So I'm just grateful to have new people on our team that can expand home food preservation work into this space.
I'll go next. Hi, I'm Michelle with Yasuke Farm, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'll get my shine on. I'm super excited after being involved with kind of my version of a Veggie Rx program for the past like 15 years in practice, that we're actually going to be launching our own Veggie Rx program within a 4-school system in East County, and that we're also doing it in Washington State, in 3 counties in Washington State. And so I'm excited because within 2 of those counties are like really the highest poor communities that are there. And so it's going to be very interested being a part of the Veggie Rx program here and to be over there, and so that to see what's going on over there so I could bring back information as to how they're operating and some of what they're doing and what's working over there differently from what's working over here. And it's something that I've always wanted to do, to see us get to a place where maybe, you know, every few months, 3-4 months, we can network with other states and see what they're doing. And so hopefully we could get some funding and support to get us into that way. So I'm excited about that, and with the partnerships that we got involved with to make this possible. And this has been a thing that, especially with the schools, and the schools are new. It really took us like a year and a half to get here, and I thought one of the clinics that I'm working with, I thought for sure they would have launched already, and to see this new school came aboard. And we are gifting 200 of the families our nutritional platform. And so we have an educational model that are at the school that we're kind of teaching the kids a seed to plate concept in school with the Veggie Rx program. So I'm super excited, and can't wait to tell you guys about how that's working for the kids. We adopted the USDA program in the educational part of what we're doing with the kids, just to make it really excited for them. And so, and we are doing a cooking program, and they're at the school with the parents and their parent group. And so, yeah, I'm so happy. Yeah.
Hi all, my name is Jen Chandler. I'm with the Oregon Health Authority. And this is my first time joining this group, so I'm excited to be here. I thought I'd quickly share that earlier in the kind of late winter, earlier spring, myself, Shin, and some other OCFSN folks co-wrote a component within the Oregon Health Authority's application for the state physical activity and nutrition grant that's given out every 5 years from the CDC. And there's a number of different components to this particular grant, but one of them of particular interest to this group is specifically a fruit and veggie voucher, a produce prescription program component. And we were very intentional about writing in some small grant funding to be able to fund participation in program development. So we kind of scoped out a larger goal, but really built in some opportunities for us to co-plan what the program will look like over the course of 5 years, and where we can infuse some extra funding, either for specific program development or training and technical assistance, or other things that kind of collaboratively we identify as priorities. So I'm pretty eager to hear about that. We should know in August is when they release they share who's funded. The unfortunate part is that only 16 applications are funded, but I think that we did put forward a really strong application. So I'm hopeful that it will be a good contender.
Thanks so much for sharing that update, Jen. So that's a little bit part of the reason why, one of the reasons of trying to get all of us together in this, or as many of us together in the same room before August. One is, start to have a plan for what happens if and when we get that funding, and how do we have those conversations so that we're not as crunched when it actually happens, and this way we can get as much input as we can, and also the needing to use up the GusNIP capacity building funds before the end of August. So those are kind of the two contingencies. And then yeah, anyone else want to share?
A little to the left of Veggie Rx specific, but some folks at the start of the call heard I successfully defended my dissertation proposal, so I'm allowed to move forward with my study, which is looking at Veggie Rx, sort of for want of a quicker way to describe it, case study of Veggie Rx in Oregon and CCOs, and trying to understand how CCOs perceive and engage with and finance these programs. The ultimate goal is to really help benefit Veggie Rx programs. So as soon as I get institutional approval to move forward, talking to people, I will start contacting likely a lot of people in this group to talk about scheduling an interview for various pieces. So if this is something that someone comes to mind that you think, I should consider talking to, or you might want to be involved in, I would love to hear from you. I'm happy to drop my email in the chat. But I just wanted to make that quick plug that I may start bothering some of you, and I really would love to utilize some of your time if you're able to provide it.
Congratulations again, Alexandra, and thanks for that update. And then just a kind of action item for me after this is I can send out a follow-up with the narrative so folks can kind of read the language around the SPAN grant, especially the section that impacts us. And yes, there's definitely like CDC language in there. And I think we probably have some more flexibility in the way that we implement should we get the funds.
I have a quick update. It's not like super directly Veggie Rx, but oh, sorry, I'm Diego. I am with Lynn County Health Department. I'm the Healthy Communities Coordinator, mostly do food systems and food access stuff. We have some money left over actually from tobacco retail license revenue that was distributed to health departments. And we have decided to try to pilot like a micro grant program for different CBO partners to basically to cover food, to like be used directly to purchase food from local producers, to like in service of some community education, food tasting, any kind of anything that like fits within that umbrella. For just like for a community centered event or kind of series. So we're working with some folks at Samaritan who are connected with the NAACP as well, to provide like a gardening kind of tutorial, quick gardening tutorial and plant starts for people at a Juneteenth event. Someone just reached out to us from a local community doula program about like doing like a kind of nutrition series and class with like, new mothers and families. So yeah, this is like, we have to get the money out by the end of June. So we're going to do a handful of them now, but it's something that we hope that we can keep doing in little bursts year to year. So I'm really excited to see where that leads. And hopefully it can, start to, open doors to Veggie Rx kind of explorations too. So thanks for having me here.
I can go next with a quick update. So many of you know that I've been working on this updated census report of all the currently active Veggie Rx programs across the state. So all that data for the most part has come back in. So I'm very excited to start compiling that, organizing it, and ultimately getting it into an actual report that you can look through. I'll be presenting that data at my practice experience presentation. I'm part of the OHSU PSU School of Public Health, so it's a graduation requirement for me to present that. You all are welcome to attend, but I think it might make more sense to, if you're all interested in seeing a presentation of this, maybe scheduling a separate working session to go over this data, because ultimately I want all of you to have to see it firsthand and to have continued access to it. So if that would be helpful, I would love to present all that. It'll take a little while to get it nice looking and not super confusing when you look at it, but should be fun to go through that. And I'll probably continue updating it. I know there were a couple of programs who didn't have the capacity right now to fill out the survey, which is totally fine. So I can kind of retroactively add some stuff later on. But yeah, I would love to present that in the coming month or two. So let me know if there is interest.
Thanks, Emily. We're super excited because I think the last time we had that updated was 2021, if I'm not mistaken.
I
And
think
so I think
2020 from Mariel Slater's
Mhm.
census
Okay.
report.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things is how do we continue to kind of keep apprised of all the different programs and make sure that, you know, we're trying to get connected as much as we can. And also it's been really, this is Emily's the second OHSU PSC's Masters of Public Health student to work with us. Jen Coate, who's also on the call, did hers with us last spring. And so Kaylee and I have also kind of done a like one pager. This way, that's something, this opportunity to work with OCFSN is something that can be shared out with, you know, the full class of students doing their masters, because food systems isn't necessarily something that comes like immediately to mind for some folks. So that part's really exciting. And yeah, I guess does anyone else want to share? And yeah. And if not, I will move on to I guess if anyone wants to share anything in the chat, that's obviously also an option. And I think, yeah, let's quickly run through the survey results we have so far. And then this way, if anyone on this call who hasn't had an opportunity, who didn't have an opportunity to fill it out, if you want to drop any comments or like your answers to some of these survey questions into the chat, we'll be able to look at that afterwards. So based off feedback from folks, it looks like July 17th to 18th was when the majority of folks could meet. However, I think when we set this up, we didn't necessarily have we didn't have checkboxes, so it was kind of pick one only and not all of them. So I think I'm wondering if we potentially need to do some of that again. Because does July feel too, and maybe this is like a thumbs up kind of situation from folks if we want to move forward with the July 17th to 18th? Or if we're feeling like maybe a August date feels more realistic.
Can I just say something really fast?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I put it in the survey that when we created this, we had the expectation that we had to utilize all those funds for the capacity building mini grant that we received by August. So although I have not heard any actual details, I did have a conversation with somebody with the organization, like the NTAE place. And they said that there might be some flexibility around that and that we could ask for an extension. So when we created this survey, it was kind of like, oh, we have to have this completed by August. And then we also have all the reporting due by end of August. But it seems like that has possibly changed.
Okay.
Just so people are aware of that when we think about going for July, because that's pretty soon. So it's just my opinion.
Okay, that's helpful context. Thanks, Jen. I think what we should likely do is send out an updated poll to make sure that we cover dates through all of August or through the end of August. And then okay, I'll just flip through. So we also had responses of like, where do we want to meet? Do we want, you know, folks who are able to travel regardless? And then Portland, I think, was the next highest response rate in terms of ability to get there. And also part of we wrote into the grant, get money for gathering. And so that would include like some for folks who need support on transportation or like lodging. If we do a multi-day convening, that'll be available too. And then wherever we end up going, I'll be driving down from Portland. So if folks need a ride for Portland, I can also provide that too. And so there were a couple places that we had discussed potentially hosting. And one of them, Juliet's not on the call because she's on vacation right now. But we did want to share this as an option, was to go down to Roseburg, which is about 4.5 hours from Portland for those who are here. And this was just looking at dates. Thursday through Saturdays is where their family and farmer owned VRX redemption site is. And so being able to time that with the farmers market, which is on Saturdays, and then also any of those days being able to visit their community garden, because I think our original thought was if we wanted to potentially do this on like a Thursday, Friday, and kind of do a day and a half. So like a half day of like tours and then a, full day of like working sessions to talk through a number of things. I think a lot of this is still flexible, and I'm hoping that we can all kind of co-create this. And from what I've heard from a lot of you so far, it's been, okay, so, what does all the work that we originally going to apply for, that we would potentially want to apply for like a GUSM grant, that's just one source of funding. So it's like with the SPAN grant, what are some of the ways that like we want to organize and prioritize the things that we work on in the next year? So kind of coming up with a plan for that, which potentially, requires looking at the pretty comprehensive strategic plan for the Veggie Rx working group. We just haven't looked at that for a little while because that was created right before the pandemic. And so there were a lot of things that I think when people started to re-engage again in early 2021, folks didn't really, we didn't have enough space, I think, at that point to really start to tackle that. And then I think one of the other locations that we're thinking of, we don't have any of the team from Adelante here right now, but their farmers market is on Wednesdays. And so that was an opportunity potentially to do that as a visit. And so those are kind of two of the things that had popped up. So I think yeah, and then this particular slide is just a review of some of the previous like key things that we talked about during the mini convening. One of them being the 1115 waiver, and then the different barriers for the programs, and talking and learning more about like evaluation and surveys. And then I guess just in general, do folks know about or have they used the Veggie Rx OCFSN drive? Because that is where a lot of like existing toolkits and just reports from previous years, where that lives. And so that's at the very top left corner of the meeting notes doc, if folks need to reference that. So I'm going to stop sharing. We have a little bit of time left, and I kind of just want to open up some space for folks to just share some thoughts on the convening and that we're planning, and what people would hope to get out of gathering, and if anyone here wants to be part of that planning team.
I think for us, yeah, just kind of getting on the same page about if and when we could go for a statewide GusNIP grant. I'm a little out of the loop, so I don't know what priorities have been discussed, but that is a great opportunity and also tricky because a lot of our programs are so different. So there's always been that kind of little bit of a tension of do we streamline some things or do we remain very unique? I don't know. And then also, yeah, just the ever-changing healthcare funding landscape. I'm really grateful for more partnership with Oregon Health Authority here and OHSU and some others I can't see, but that's just always evolving. So always happy to learn and collaborate and share too. Just our trials and tribulations over the years, but making some headway.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. I think, we weren't going to go for this year based on timing of just how realistic it was, and it wasn't. But I think to your point of how do we decide how and what gets included in a statewide collaboration, because I think one definitely exists, but some of the really powerful things and really community focused aspects of the existing Veggie Rx programs is centered around things that are kind of unique. However, I think there is very likely a baseline of this is like the foundational things that everyone needs and every program technically has. So is there a way to align on what those kind of pillars are and then make the case for funding those things and not being hyper prescriptive about how those particular elements need to be executed. And I think we have the ability to do that. And if we start the conversation now, I think in this quarter, then that sets us up much better for realistically being able to apply for the GusNIP grant in 2024, or for making the case for a different source of funding as well. Because I think what we're putting together doesn't change, right? I think it's imagining what do we want this to look like? What do people need it to look like? And then finding the funds that actually suit that. I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And I guess, we could write staffing into the grant, but who's managing this? It's a big deal. And then also, I don't know, I'd like to have a preliminary conversation before we even talk, go for a GusNIP, like how do we decide who or where gets funded? Because even if you look at Washington, even with a $6 million grant, they could only fund, looking at a map right now, maybe 8 counties.
Okay.
And being Klickitat, Skamania residents down in South Central Washington didn't super appreciate them funding all the counties around Seattle and a couple others, but I don't want anyone to feel like excluded. So it is a big can of worms kind of, but I think when we're ready to talk about, but I just want to, flag that.
Definitely. And I think to that point though, what Jen had mentioned with the CDC SPAN grant is, there are kind of 2 buckets of money that we applied that should we get the grant that we'll have. One is to continue funding this working group and a lot of what's already been started. But it's also another bucket, which would be for kind of funding mini grants. And so we don't currently at this moment have the process defined for those mini grants. So that's something that we want to co-create with this group. And so that's one of the key things that we'll want to spend some time on, either in subgroup meetings or at least start that conversation in our in-person convening. And I think also to your point, having a Zoom option for some of these ideation sessions, or whiteboarding sessions. I think we could definitely make that happen, especially if we end up hosting, like, I don't know, on a college campus somewhere, or somewhere that has big screens, which is a lot more plentiful now than it used to be. And so I know I originally booked this meeting. So Marcy, we haven't decided yet. It's gonna be this summer. We're gonna try to aim for before the end of August. Because I think we have a little bit of flexibility on when to spend the money. And yeah, and right now, Portland was definitely the location that the majority of folks who responded. So we had 10 people respond so far to meet in. And so we may just move forward with that, but we will probably look at dates again and send out a new form now that we have a little bit of more flexibility with being able to ask for an extension to use up those Guston capacity building funds. And so I know I had originally set this meeting to last until 3:15, but I'm definitely gonna have to end it at 3 because I forgot I double booked. So I apologize to everyone. But we have 15 minutes left, and I'm wondering if there's anything else that folks want to talk about or bring up. I know right now is kind of the start of busy season for a lot of folks, so I'm also happy to give people 15 minutes back. Yeah, Marcy, go ahead.
Yeah, I apologize for coming into the meeting late, but a question I have, and if you've already covered it, I'll just wait and read the notes. But where are we at with the system of using like a debit card versus paper vouchers? And is one more question. Is it possible for me to get the name and the contact information of the last gentleman that spoke to us about the system where he talked about having paper vouchers and electronic, that they could do both?
Yeah, definitely. I don't remember who could do both, but if you're talking about the pilot program for Fresh Connect that Adelante and Thrive Umpqua went through, yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely been.
So I have that contact information, but there was another person that came to one of our meetings that talked, and it was a separate system that we were talking about. It was different than the ones that Thrive and the others were using.
Are you talking about Scott?
Is that who it is?
It was like Scott something, yeah.
That sounds, yeah, that sounds right.
CBD or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Jen. I guess where are we at, if the question is still where are we at right now, I don't know who else is planning on expanding into using Fresh Connect. I think there have been some challenges with it. I think there are some conversations that have been happening in terms of like, are there some other options, and I think with any software related solution, which this in a lot of ways is, if there is enough buying power, that makes the client and customer experience very, very different than if and this is me coming from the other side before, as working for a software as a service company and wanting to help with mission-driven organizations, but being responsible for like over 100 accounts. And then when there's not an ability when there are very specific needs that are unique, it makes it really hard to customize that. And for that to like land at the top of the priority list. But yes, I think that is a that is a conversation that we will need to circle back to at some point and should be on the agenda. And I think that also just goes hand in hand with if we can get a certain baseline of like understanding and alignment of needs across programs, then that allows us to have more buying power for certain things like this. And Jazz has dropped in a comment. Yeah, I think creating some shared equity goals as a group would be really great. And just community agreements. I think that's something that overall I know we're looking at creating for OCFSN, because I think it's important to have shared understanding and to be as explicit as we can be, so we all know what we mean when we say and use certain phrases. And then yeah, definitely talking more, getting an update on 1115 waiver. I don't know if anyone on this call has any updates on that. I do not at the moment, but
It would be great if we could have somebody from OHA or wherever that is specifically working on this come to at least share, like, what is the direction? Like, I mean, not that they have decisions made, because I know they're probably not going to want to share any of that, but even if we just have an idea as to like, what is even the direction, and they may not know what the direction is yet, but it would be helpful for us to at least have an idea what direction we're going, so that we can start in this pre-planning period.
yeah, or just an update on where we're at. Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to be pretty, to be honest, I've been trying to get some of those same questions answered, and have not had a whole lot of luck. But I will say that that I have spoken with the Public Health Division Director's Office, specifically the folks who coordinate the implementation of our state health improvement plan, the Healthier Together Oregon. And within the housing and food access kind of subgroup, working group, they are looking to make some of these connections with the 1115 waiver that would include those that they're called social needs, health related social needs, including like housing and food access and such. And so kind of as a division, we're trying to make a better connection with the health systems division, which is the division that administers Medicaid and is implementing the 1115 waiver. So I think I would be happy to continue to bring information back to this group. And as soon as we're able to make a connection and maybe get somebody to share what their process is shaping up to look like, I'm happy to kind of make that connection as soon as hopefully we get some information back from our partners over in the health systems division. From what I understand, they are planning for community input for planning the implementation of the waiver. What that actually looks like, I don't know yet. But like I said, happy to just kind of be a liaison with any information that I come across.
Thanks for that update, Jen.
I would add that Jessica Dees is the community engagement manager within that piece of OHA, and has already done some community outreach to community-based organizations, and might be a good contact as well. Say outreach around the 1115 waiver and implementation planning.
Thanks for that clarification, Claire.
I can also reach out to Eliza Hallett, who works at the OHSU Center for Health Systems Effectiveness. She does a lot of policy analyzing there and works directly with OHA and the Medicaid 1115 waiver. She came to my class the other day and it was so informative. And she's really good at explaining how the waiver works and where we're at with things. So if there's interest in that, I could see if she'd be willing to speak on that a little as well. She seems very open to talking about what she's doing and where the whole process is at. So I'm happy to reach out to her as well.
So I know we have about 5 minutes left. I am wondering, the format of these meetings has changed quite a bit. Even just from like a year and a half ago. And I know we've taken a pause from the monthly meetings. We did the mini convening, a couple months ago, and I feel like we are at a place where we have kind of directionally a specific, I would call it a project in a way, that we want to move forward with, starting to like write and create. But we've also hosted a number of kind of more info session types of calls, especially around like the 1115 waiver or around the different types of potential tools and like software solutions. I think I'm wondering, is there more of a type of like content that folks here want to prioritize and want to make sure that we are planning for? And if you just want to drop that in the chat or send us an email afterwards, because I think what's really interesting about the OCFS and working groups that I can see is that every working group kind of manages content very differently, and it's very much driven by the group that is actively participating. And I think there's also maybe like sometimes I think there's maybe also a perception that we are a much larger and more resourced organization than maybe we are. We're a staff of 2 right now. Prior to last year, it was mostly all volunteer run, and Andrew's role being different from mine. For folks who aren't familiar with Andrew, he's the Farming for the Future working group coordinator, and that was funded by the Roundhouse Foundation. And that has been a pretty big success right now, because I think having a focused individual on a working group, I mean, technically he has 4 subgroups under there, but being able to have a person who is in some ways kind of program managing all the different conversations happening and being able to pull that together and help make connections has been really invaluable. And I know, for example, the DEI committee is, set up very differently. And we just, just closed equity assessment at the end of last month. And right now we're kind of going through the review of all that content. But one of the key things the group is recognizing is that there is a need for a focused coordinator and a paid coordinator at that. And so, that particular working group is going to, pull together a small group of folks to essentially identify a grant or some source of funding and then apply for it to find funding for this focus coordinator. And so I just want to share that as that is an idea and that is an option for what we as a group can do. Because right now we do have Michelle and Kaylee who have been supporting as co-facilitators for this working group. And I think the direction that I'm going to, and the network's also continuing to move towards, is let's pay people for their time and labor and expertise, and figuring out how do we do that. And so I just want to leave everyone with that thought, because this only happens because all of you keep showing up. So thank you so much, y'all. And yeah, send us your thoughts afterwards. And we'll share back out the meeting notes and the overall SPAN grant language so folks can read through that. And then we'll send another poll to figure out an actual date. And I think we'll do Portland. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.